Coming past the 8th pole, it's Ruffian in front by 7 lengths. Something Regal on the outside, second point in time. The other's now far back as Ruffian draws away to lead by 9. It's Ruffian in front and going easily.
Hello, it's Bob Pandolfo on Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. Welcome to Power Pace. This segment we're going to talk about class and value. Class handicapping and value handicapping, as far as trying to get appropriate odds for the wagers that we make. Today I gave out three races on my website, handicappingwinners.com. The first race was at Parks. There was a bunch of 2-year-old first-time stars, and my horse finished second. So I missed my pick threes, but then I hit the second and third race double. And once I missed my pick threes, I went in and I bet more money on my 2 picks in races 2 and 3. And double paid $10.80, which was actually a very good value for that, which I'll show you. But I wanted to show something because, a lot of people wonder, how do you use class? How do you find who's the class of the field? This is a question that people ask all the time about handicapping. So, I have class ratings in my systems, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but I'm going to talk about other ways where you can, try to evaluate class. But I just wanted to, mention too that, this is sometimes people overthink it. A lot of times people are like, well, how do I figure out who's the class? It's not as important as you might think in a lot of these races, because let's just say that you had a race that was like a non-winners of 3 other than, where you have a bunch of horses that have 5, 6, 7 wins because they raced in claiming races plus maiden races. So they broke their maiden, and then maybe they went and they won the non-winners of 1, but then they couldn't break through non-winners of 2, so the trainer put them into claiming races, and then they won several races in claiming races. Now the trainer's trying them back in non-winners of 3, see if they can break through that condition. So say there's a horse in there that won a grade 3 stakes race once and finished 3rd in a grade 2. So people would say, oh, he's the class of the race, right? He raced against better horses. But when did he race against those horses? And is he the same horse now? So let's just say that he's raced in non-winners of 3 a few times and he never got through it, and he's not in his best form anymore. So the fact that at one point he won a grade 3 stakes race, he may have been a 2-year-old then. And sometimes those stakes races for 2-year-olds really aren't that strong because the horses only raced a few times. So he might not really be the class of the field, or he may have been the class of the field at one time, but he no longer is because he isn't the same horse anymore. So you have to be careful about falling into these traps where you think, oh, this horse won a lot of money, he must be the class of the field. Well, how is he? What is he today? That's what's important. So for my ratings, now here's the second race. The horse I originally picked to win was the 4, but he was scratched. So that made Reiterate my top choice. And Reiterate, after the 4 was scratched, he looked much the best here. But now you can see I have my class ratings here, and he has a 25. And then the rest are 19, 18, and they get down to 16. So the reason why he has a 25 is because I average earnings and for the horses the last 6 races, and we take an average of them, and we create a rating. That's as good a way to evaluate class as anything I've ever seen. In fact, it's better than most of the class ratings I've seen, because again, you want to know what the class of the horse is now. You want an overall look, and in my programs like this Formula Pro, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to give people an overall look of each horse's ability. That's why I have ratings like this. Like here's the ability rating, and then you can see Reiterate also has the top ability rating. He has a 370, and the one horse Penance has a 363. So this is what I'm trying to do. I take a snapshot. So what I'm doing is I'm using averages. Instead of just saying, well, let's rate a horse off of this race, like the last race, or the race before, I'm rating them off of 3 races. With the class, I'm rating them off of 6. But with a lot of these other ratings, I'm using 3 recent races. Not the last 3 races. 3 races that I feel are going to give me, a good idea of the kind of ability that this horse has right now. So reiterate, just chased the pace here and came through and just won, drew off easy. And now I'm going to show you the 3rd race. And again, we're going to sort this on class. Finally captured, as you can see here, had a 55 on my class ratings. And he won the race easily, even easier than reiterate. Both of these horses won easily. And there are other ratings you can use, like if you use Bristnet past performances, their prime power rating, gives you a general idea of class. It's not as good as my class rating because it has other things in it that have nothing to do with class, but that gives you kind of a general idea. I mean, you can use that and play around with it, maybe even combine it with other things. I have one of my systems. I have my real-time system. I have a number called P Power Prime, where I took that prime number and I kind of used some other, I created an algorithm. But my class rating here is like I said, as good as any because it's giving you current class. And another thing too is now both of these races at Parks were claiming races. In claiming races, one of the most important things if you're trying to evaluate class is trainers. Good trainers who win races are going to spot their horses where they can win. So a lot of times it's easy to spot the horse that has a class edge because it also has one of the trainers that spots their horses correctly. Now I know you may say, well, why would some other trainers not spot their horses correctly? Because some of them aren't that good at playing the claiming game. They don't, for whatever reason, some trainers just don't put their horses in where they can win. And sometimes it's simply because they don't have a lot of horses and they don't want the horse to get claimed for a certain price, so they put him in over his head. So in other words, they don't want to risk him for $25,000, so they put him in for $40,000, but he can't win for $40,000. So a lot of times the trainers that have a low win percentage, like below 10%, are trainers who do not spot their horses aggressively. And sometimes they don't have a lot of horses. They don't want to, they don't want horses to get claimed. They don't want to have any horses to make any money on because they don't have any horses to run if their horses keep getting claimed. But of course, the trainers that have good owners and who allow them to spot the horses correctly are going to win more races. And if a horse gets claimed, they just buy another horse. They claim another horse from another race, so they go to a sale and they buy more horses. That's how you play the game. If you're going to own claiming horses or regular raceway horses, if you're not willing to have your horse claimed, you shouldn't be in the game. You shouldn't be in the sport because you're going to be running horses where they can't win, and they're just going to be running 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th, and you're not going to make any money, and it's not going to be very exciting. So so I'll give you an example here. But first of all, I just showed you how these horses were ranked first on class on my system. Power pace, and so you can see reiterate paid $420, and that was my top choice after my other horse was scratched. And then finally captured, which was my best bet. I put a double asterisk next to that today. That one paid for $440. Both these horses went easy. This double paid $10.80. This was an overlay. Now I know people think, well, how could it be an overlay? It only paid $10 because it's all relevant to A, how good these horses looked. And they both these horses looked like the clearly superior horse in the race, on not only on class but even on pace figures and everything else. And there weren't that many horses in these races. So if you go back to the second race, you only had a 6-horse field, and the only horse that could beat reiterate was scratched. And then in this race, you only had a 6-horse field. And I'm going to show you some of the past performances here. Now we'll go to reiterate. The only horse in the race that had any good form that would look like maybe a challenger to reiterate was this horse Penance. But she's an 8-year-old mare who just doesn't get out of the gate anymore. At one time she did. Here you can see she closed well in her last race, but she's always far back. It's a 6-furlong race. She has the rail. Those are the kind of horses you want to bet against. Reiterate as you can see here, had run at a speed figure of 74 2 starts in a row for a $7,500 tag. Today she was in for 5,000. Again, you know, the trainer here you can see he's 15%, and the claim is he's a pretty good claiming trainer, and he just dropped her in, and where she can win. And you can see she won for 75 here, and she finished second for 15 here, and then she finished second for 75, and then she only lost by 2 lengths last time. Penance did finish ahead of her last time, but like I said, Penance is coming from the clouds, and Reiterate figured to be sitting close up. And with the 4-horse scratch, there wasn't much speed in the race. There was cheap speed, and like this horse, the 5-horse, who went out and gave way. So that was just a great spot for Reiterate. So now we'll go over to the next race, the third race. And this was a maiden claiming $25,000 race. And I'm going to show you something about this race. Again, when you're trying to evaluate class, a lot of times, if you don't have my class ratings, you look at where they're running recently, right? So look, the 1-horse Liberty for All, showed some speed in his debut. He didn't debut until he was a 4-year-old. Showed some speed, but then he backed up. Now he was getting Lasix and dropping in, so he figured to be a factor. And then you had this horse had run for 25, hadn't run in 2 years, had run for 25, didn't run that well, Uptown Shoes. This horse was another horse that could improve. It's another horse that didn't debut into a 4-year-old. Also on the sloppy track, was in the same race as this horse, the 1-horse. Just kind of went evenly, started a little slow. That horse could improve because it's only his second start. This horse ran once and ran very poorly. And this horse already lost for a $25,000 tag. Hasn't really been firing. And then he came down to this horse, which was my best bet today, finally captured. Now, all right, here's a big difference. And this is where, again, where you have to, know your conditions if you want to evaluate class. This horse, as you can see, was in a maiden race, but it was not a Pennsylvania bred maiden race. It was open. You see it says maiden 55,000. Now we look at the 1-horse, that had a $50,000 purse, that maiden race. And here's the S. So that was a state bred race. So that means all the horses were bred in Pennsylvania. You go down to finally captured, this horse was bred in Florida. So he was in open maidens, which is better. And I'll show you how there's proof in the past performances of this. If you look at his last race, now you can see, first of all, that he's improved in every start. He went a speed figure of 53 in his debut, then 64, then 68, which is good. So you're seeing he's improving. But look at his pace figures. He ran a second call, 93 in his first start, a 94 in his second start, and then last race he ran a 101. And his first fractions all went up each race too, 91, 93, 98. So he's on an improving pattern. Look at the time here. 22 to the quarter, that's fast for these kind of horses, and 45 and 3. If you look at all these other horses, they're not going to be able to touch that. This horse here, they went 47. This horse, I mean, 2 years ago he went 45 and 4, but now he's he hasn't raced in a few years. He's a 5-year-old. He barely kept up to a 46 and 2. This horse, again, he's 4 lengths behind at 47. And this horse has absolutely no speed. And there aren't any. Look at the pace, 47 and 3. 46 was the quickest. So this horse, 22 at 45 and 3, and he's right there. I mean, he's a length behind at the first call, and he's only 3 lengths behind at the second call. So dropping in for a tag today. Scott Lake is a veteran trainer, has been around a long time. He's going to put his horses in where they can win. That's why he wins at a good percentage. And he had Paco Lopez, who's winning at 32% here. So he went for a real live jockey. And I thought that to be honest with you, I mean, I thought that the $4.40 was a gift. I mean, you had speed on the outside, class edge, dropping down, improved pace figures, coming out of a superior race, and I don't know how to double pay 10.80. This was kind of a gift, really, and so is the win price. So I like long shots, and everybody knows that. I pick my share of long shots, but you have to take what they give you, and an overlay doesn't have to be a long shot. This double was an overlay for $10.80 because both of these horses look dominant here. There wasn't much. It was one horse. There's only 5 horses in race number 2, and there were only 6 horses. Oh wait, I don't know. I think there were 6 horses in each race. There was a scratch in race number 2. So each horse only had to beat 5 horses. They both had tactical speed. They both had a class edge on my class ratings. And if you look at, let's look at the rankings here in this race, this maiden claiming. If you look at the pace, finally captured. He's in the 1 on class and he's 2nd on pace. So he has tactical speed, but he has that class edge to get by the other speeds. And in the second race, we go back to that race. So let's look at pace. And reiterate again, he's 1st in race distance, 1st in form, 2nd in pace, 2nd in average speed, 1st in ability, and of course, as I said, he's 1st in class. So he has his overall picture, his overall ability looks pretty good. And again, I'm using 3 races to evaluate most of these ratings, and on my class rating, I'm using 6 races. So that gives you a better look. Now, I should do this in another video, but a lot of people talk about, well, what Pacelines should I use? And I can't believe that I see people talking about what Paceline to use to rate a horse, and I still see people saying stuff like, just use the last race, or just use the best of the last 2 or something. That's not really great. First of all, using the last race is ridiculous, because if the horse didn't run well in his last race, and you just say, well, he didn't run well his last race, so I'm not going to bet him. You're not going to do well at all, because a lot of horses run poorly or don't run their best race in their last race, and it doesn't mean anything. It just means they didn't run that good last time. They could be coming back off a 6-week layoff or a 2-month layoff or a 3-month layoff, and they're a completely different horse. They're back in shape. They've been training. They're freshened up. So you can't just look at a horse and say, well, he didn't run that well last time, so he's no good. No, they're not machines. Actually, some of the best bets you're ever going to make are on horses that didn't run well last time. And that's why you'll see trainers freshen a horse up. Maybe the horse had a little problem in his last race, or maybe the trainer thinks he's getting a little tired, or maybe he's souring on racing, so give him a little time off. In the last race, if he comes off a 3-month layoff and he has like 8 workouts leading up to this race, what he did in his last race doesn't really mean much. He's got to, he's not wheeling back in 7 days. So Paceline selection is important, but you're better off at trying to get a picture of a horse. And that's why I evaluate horses off of several of recent races. And that gives me a better view of their class and a better view of their overall ability. So, anyway, and like I said, this is my Formula Pro system, which is very reasonable. It's a great system. And like I said, my class rating is as good as anything you're going to find. It's better than most class ratings. Some of the things I see people using for class to try to evaluate a horse, really aren't that good. And like I said, in a lot of these claiming races, you're going to stick with the trainers and know how to spot horses. They're the ones that are going to have a class edge because they're going to put their horses in where they can win. The trainers with a low win percentage, struggle in races like that. Now, that doesn't mean I wouldn't bet a trainer with a low win percentage. I would, if it's a long shot that I think has a chance in certain situations. Most of the time when I'm betting trainers that don't have a good win percentage, it's more like in maiden races than in condition races or claimers. But I'll go into that. We'll talk a little bit about how to bet trainers who don't have high win percentages, in a future video, because that's where you can get some good long shots. But generally speaking, the trainers who have a good win percentage of, say, 15% or more, they're the ones who are simply spotting their horses well. There are some trainers that are very good horsemen and they win less than 10%, and they're good trainers. The thing is, they don't put their horses in where they can win, so they know how to condition a horse. But if you put the horse in over its head, it's not going to win, even if it's in good shape. So So anyway, thanks for watching Power Pace. This is Pandy. Good luck. Remember, subscribe to my channel. It's free. That's important for me. Thanks.